The Cyclones have earned their first 11-win season in program history. And how do they celebrate? By eating a 6-foot-tall mascot turned America's favorite breakfast pastry. Today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to you guys for joining me every single day. And for those of you who do that, hey, big shout out to you guys. You guys are the ones that make the world go around. I couldn't appreciate you enough. Making this your first listen every day is amazing, but making sure you subscribe or leave a review wherever you listen, because it is completely free, helps to prove that it is, in fact, once and for all, a Cyclone state. And boy, this weekend we turned some heads, didn't we? Let's talk about it. Obviously, we're going to be talking football today. We're going to have to break down the game kind of as a whole. That 11th win is big. Then, as I said on Friday, I said, hey, that defense is going to play a huge role in this game. We'll talk about why was that the case in a 42-41, 83 points total game. Why was defense big? Obviously, there wasn't a whole lot of it. And lastly, momentum for next year, question mark. I've got a bit of an interesting take on that one, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Boy, I'm not going to lie to you guys. This game was by far my favorite Iowa State game I have ever watched. Everything around the game, to be completely honest, was pretty much perfect. The sprinkles on the sideline was a beautiful touch. Something I didn't notice until I watched the game back was that they wrapped the field goal posts, the padding at the bottom of those posts. They added like aluminum wrapping with Pop-Tarts logos all over it. That was beautiful. Obviously, the mascots. They brought the energy. They really did. They brought the frosted strawberry one back from the dead up in the top shelf. Wild berry was wild throughout the entire game, constantly in and around everything around the game. Joshing with the refs and in the celebration huddle with the Cyclones. Everything around this game was done very well, except for one graphic, which we may or may not get to. And the play on the field was nothing short of simply amazing. Everything you could have ever wished for in a game, unless I guess if you like, if there's any Iowa Hawkeye fans in here, you'll probably say, oh, well, we enjoy our 6-3 final scores. Okay, well, I'm going to be completely honest. This game was about as perfect as it could have been. Iowa State, starting the game off with firing in the end zone there for a touchdown right after Miami fumbles. So it's a fumble. Then we score 8 straight touchdowns throughout this game. No field goals, no punts. It was just pure fireworks to start it. And then it turns into a bit of a different game in the second half. And obviously I'll touch on why that was the case. But Iowa State finds themselves in a little bit of a hole, has to fight back, score a go-ahead touchdown with less than a minute left. And can Miami answer? No. Your Cyclones are the Pop-Tart Bowl champions. And yes, this bowl is gaining a lot of popularity. So it feels like a little bit like we won the Super Bowl, the way that everything was celebrated. But you do have to keep in mind that this was, in fact, still just a bowl game. But to say just a bowl game feels like a little bit of an insult, because this is Iowa State's first 11-win season. And so obviously that was big. But before we get into, the ramifications of the game, that's something for later. Let's talk about the game itself. Yes, Miami fumbles on their first snap of the game, and Iowa State recovers it. Quick touchdown to Gabe Burkle, who in this game, he showed out with 4 receptions and 54 yards along of 22, kind of our number 2 guy. Still haven't gotten any word on why Higgins wasn't playing. Very much a surprise to me. I said all week Higgins and Noel were going to be big in this game, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, where's Higgins? Find a tweet, and it's like, yeah, Higgins isn't going to be out there. I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. There was a couple of things around that, in that realm around this game. Obviously, Restrepo wasn't out there. Plenty of other guys, just a couple off the top of my head, and there's one huge name, but we got to get through the game before we get to that. Then obviously Iowa State, scores that touchdown. Miami, 75-yard house call, just immediately. Oh, by the way, if we don't fumble the ball, we are still the number 1 offense in college football this year. Don't forget that, Cyclones. How does Iowa State answer, though? Right? I'm going to be completely honest. I was like, okay, if this game turns into a shootout, I don't know exactly where this is going to go. And I did tweet out at Nick Marv right down there in the corner. I was like, if this game ends up being like a 62-62 game, I'm okay with that. Like, this could very well end up being that way. and we were pretty close to it. 42-41, it's a lot of points. That is a lot of points. So Iowa State's like, okay, hey, guess what? We're still here. We're playing offense too. Boom, touchdown. We go back and forth. Final score of the first quarter was 21-14. 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns in the first quarter. I mean, if you don't like offense, I guess this wasn't your game, but this was so fun to watch. Just explosive play after explosive play after explosive play. And Iowa State was ripping them off too. It wasn't just Miami. So that was definitely my favorite part of the game as a whole, was just how fun the game was. It never really felt like, oh man, I don't want to watch this. Like, it was exciting beginning to end. And I will say, before I kind of move on to that second half, Carson Hansen. I mean, this is in no way, shape, or form a slight, a dig, if you will. He looked like Cam Scadaboo out there. I watched Cam, in the Big 12 championship game, and he looked like a train out on the field. Like, he could not be tackled, and he just, whatever he wanted to happen essentially happened. Carson Hansen, 16 carries for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow, first off, long of 30, and then also had a reception for, I think it was 13 yards. That, I got it right here. 1 reception, 13 yards, touchdown there as well. So 3 touchdowns for Hansen. I mean, this guy might be very well cementing his way to that lead running back spot. Rocco coming in second there, and then Noel before Abu Sama comes in with three rushes for 13 yards. I mean, the carry percentages there, clearly Hansen was the number one guy. And that's a perfect segue into, yes, Carson Hansen, let's not gloss over the fact that he was an unbelievable running back in this game and broke tackles left and right and made the plays where he had to. But Rocco Becht on the ground was unreal. Now, that doesn't take anything away from his air game either, because he had one of the best games I've seen him play, to be honest. I mean, he was very much on point, and his ability to scramble in the pocket was very much on display in this game. I'm genuinely worried that next year might be the last year we see him, because he looked so good. If he's going to be this good all year next year, and he's a top 15 pick, we might not get a 4th year out of him. And that's not saying anything about Rocco. I'm just saying from from what I'm seeing here, it's going to be tough for him to be that good and then come back for a 4th year. That would have to be real culture development. That's a culture decision that Rocco would make there. But multiple drives were extended because of Rocco's legs. Namely, I think it was that second drive that he rushed on 2nd and 10 for the first down. And I was like, that they scored, obviously. And I was like, that right there was literally, that drive was Rocco on his legs, because if we don't pick that up, obviously second is not third, but if you don't get that first down, then the rest of the drive doesn't happen. And so Rocco on the ground, 23 yards on 8 carries, doesn't look insane. Yes, he scored, obviously, the sneak to win the game. Long of 11 is like, okay, that's a mediocre. You look at the numbers and you're like, it's not a great rushing game, but yeah, he got on the ground. No, it was significantly more important to the game, to the outcome of the game, because they might not have all been long runs, but that's really good. That's really good. And Rocco, obviously through the air was unbelievable as well. I just want to point out really quickly, Isaiah Alston, number 8, had 2 receptions. The 39-yarder, I think it was his first catch all year. And it was like, go up and get it right out of the air, take it away from the defender type of grab. Unreal. So yes, we didn't have a Higgins, but Burkle stepped up and Alston was there. And he also had the first down at the, on the left end zone. If you're watching the TV copy, maybe we need to get some tearaway shirts, first off, but that was a huge catch as well. So I just thought this team played probably their best game, certainly offensively, most points in a bowl game ever for Iowa State. 270 yards through the air. I mean, that I got a lot of comments. Hey, if it's a shootout, I like Miami. And I agreed, but I will say this is kind of a shootout. This is like about as shootout as it gets, and especially for Iowa State. And we hung toe to toe. Then you can obviously touch on, well, Cam Ward didn't play the whole second half. That's a whole conversation. That's a whole segment in and of itself right there. But to the people that are saying, if Cam Ward stays, they blow Iowa State out of the water, that may be true. We'll never know. But to counter that point, Iowa State was pretty much neck and neck. Tied most of the first half when Cam Ward was playing. So keep that in mind. obviously, as well. When Cam sits, the offensive and defensive plans of attack are going to shift slightly. I mean, that you can't disagree with me on that one. So the offensive side of the ball was very much on display for both of these teams, but defensively was where I think Iowa State won this bowl game. And we'll get into that right after this. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best subscription features, was the subscription tracker. I used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Did not even realize I was paying for them. I was not a great did not love that, I will say. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. So the defense in the Pop-Tart Bowl was certainly, let's say, I don't want to say absent, but in the first quarter, it definitely was. That is for sure. That's coming from Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So how could it possibly have been the key to this game? Well, really what it came down to is that Iowa State was able to hold Miami to 2 field goals on separate occasions. To end the first half, they kept Miami in the field goal game there, which, could they have scored a touchdown there? I don't know. They were kind of up against the clock a little bit, obviously. But the bigger one was in the fourth quarter. First and goal, second and goal, third and goal. Iowa State held strong. And the bend don't break mentality is one that's gaining popularity across football of all levels. Go all the way down to Pop Warner, high school, you throw in middle school in there, JV, varsity, doesn't matter. We reach college D1 level and you're seeing it. You're seeing defenses that'll give up a ton of yards, but when it gets down to the red zone, they'll hold strong. This is a big bend. Okay. It was bend for 3 and some change quarters and then don't break. So is that really bend, don't break? I guess I'm not really. No. But in some senses, it certainly was, because when it came down to it, did Iowa State hold Miami from getting in the end zone? If Miami scores there, I mean, instead of 41, they have 40. Will that be 45? And then it's almost out of reach for a 35-45 game. Only a few minutes left on the clock. You're going to need an onside kick, and you're going to need a few things to go your way. Obviously, the game plays out completely differently with a different score. That's just how football works. You attack the situation that you currently have in front of you. But, I mean, that being said, the reality that the Cyclones were facing was, okay, we're only down 6 now. Right? That's a very feasible number. That's a touchdown. And then the extra point puts you up by 1. So that's a great spot to be in, because then maybe you're down 7. Do you kick the extra point? Do you go for 2? Iowa State wasn't left with that decision due to 2 field goals that they forced from Miami. Now, yes, they did give up a ton of points and yards. 31 points at the half for Miami was like the tie for most they'd scored in a half all year. So nothing to be like, oh, well, Iowa State's defense was rock solid in this game, and that's the reason they won. No, let's not get crazy here. I've got the team stats pulled up here, for both of these teams. And Miami had 216 yards through the air, and rushing was even worse, 308 on the ground. And yeah, it was kind of skewed because they didn't pass very much in the second half, because they put in, I think he was like a true freshman, no Cam Ward there. So that's going to be obviously key. I'm not glossing over that, but still 300 yards on the ground. That's just too many. Damian Martinez had 14 rushes for 179 yards, and you take away one of those, it goes down to 174. But still, an unbelievable clip for Miami to be rushing at when, Iowa State's passing defense was kind of where we knew our strong suit was, and so they'd half attack us through the ground. And when you go, I mean, it's just a weird can of soup to have to open there. And so I do fully acknowledge that it was like, okay, Iowa State's defense, they didn't really show up in this one. And one interesting part of that was Bo Freeler going down. I think it was early in the second quarter, or late in the first. I'm not exactly sure on the timestamp on that. And prayers up to Bo. That looked like not a fun one. Glad he was able to celebrate with his team on his crutches, in the pictures, and got to hold the trophy and eat some Pop-Tart. I love that. That's what this is all about. But to be completely honest, I know how much this team meant to him, and I know how much he meant to the team. So for him to go down when he did, it was certainly one of those like, oh, I really wonder how Iowa State's going to respond to this. And how does Miami respond to that? Well, they just attack that now vacant position, which our defense was completely obliterated, through injuries and then just everything else. Obviously, not the best defense we could wheel out there, but straight to a 30-yard strike for Miami there. And sometimes that's how it's going to go. But overall, I thought we bounced back pretty well from Bo Freeler going down. Looking at the second half here, holding Miami to 10 points in the second half, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's going to help you win games for sure. Now, could Cam Ward have come in and maybe scored another 30 points, make it a 62 final score for Miami? Maybe. But did he? No. So we can't really talk about that, can we? We'll have to talk about what he does, in the NFL when he gets selected in just a few months in that draft. But overall, I thought this defense was really solid in the short field, and it was highlighted by that the 3-point that they held Miami to that field goal to end the game, and then obviously on defense as well, Hail Mary pick. Okay, that's one that's like, do you really count that? It was a last second heave, but to be fair, they were put in that position because of Iowa State's great defense to force them. They got the ball with like 50 something seconds or something around that. So it's not like they had 16 seconds left and on their own 20. They very well could have pushed down the field and gotten to the 30. Like, they only needed a field goal. I was certainly like, okay, if Miami can just rush to the 50, maybe throw a quick out or something like that. They have time on their hands. They have a couple timeouts. Like, they are not forced to throw this ball with Emory Williams, number 17, who ended up going 5 for 14 with 26 yards. Not a great stat line. Obviously, I'm not going to say he wasn't ready, but it was he wasn't as ready as Cam Ward. He wasn't as good as Cam Ward in this game. That's a fact. So the defense stood tall once it became a pretty one-dimensional offense. Granted, still a lot of rushing yards, but held him to 10 points. And that last second heave was forced by a defense that kept that Miami offense in check. And then you go to start the game, recovering that fumble. Was it forced by Iowa State's defense? No, but they were in the right spot, right time, weren't they? Boom, right on, immediately, just like instantaneously. Iowa State ball, bang. Then we can get to the Cam Ward throw, and then therefore fumble for the Iowa State recovered. And that one I loved. I did certainly love that one because of the Cam Ward play that essentially piqued my interest, if you will, mid-play. Iowa State's essentially rushing 2, so 2 against 5, probably not going to get a lot of pressure there. And Cam Ward was elusive all game, all first half, I suppose, just in and out of linemen, evading tackles, made it look easy back there. I don't know if he got a sack or if he got sacked at all. But that being said, when you rush 2, you don't have to do that. He literally stood flat-footed for like 3 seconds, throws it out to the flat, and I'm like, gosh, he's clowning on us. What are we doing? Why are we rushing 2 right now? What is going on? Had a QB spy in the mix there, so he probably wasn't going to rush himself. I can see where the vision is. And then Iowa State forces the fumble literally seconds later, falls on it, and that was a huge one. That was a big one for Iowa State after I believe we had just punted it. And so it was like an opportunity for Miami to go up bigger. And it was that one was really big. So that defense played a role throughout the game, not only on the last drive or not only in the second half where they weren't facing Cam Ward. I seriously think that the Iowa State's defense, as much as Iowa State's offense, they were the ones that scored the 42 points, but the defense was the one that was able to give Iowa State the offense the opportunities, and then the ones that were able to essentially force a last-second 70-yard heave as opposed to a field goal to win the game, because they did only win by 1 point. So a field goal would give Miami the lead by 2 there to close it out. That being said, final score 42-41. Iowa State gets their first 11-win season. The 11th win comes right before they destroy a huge, I guess, prior mascot, Pop-Tart. Not really sure how that whole thing works out anatomically, but does it really matter? I don't know. The question is, does it matter for next season? Does Iowa State gain momentum from this? We'll talk about that right after this. Okay, so 11 wins in one season. Nothing to scoff at, obviously, for Iowa State. First time ever, and that's coming from Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This win was huge. This was an absolutely monumental win, and you could see it because Rocco Beck played the entire game and played it very well at that. This team was simply unbelievable, and everything Matt Campbell has done for this, whole university as a whole is highlighted by his contract extension. One thing people talk about quite often when talking about bowl games is, well, this team really wants to get this win to gain some momentum for next year and come out firing, come out hot. And that's a take that I've always kind of been iffy on, if you will, because it's a whole different team next year, especially now with the transfer portal. Seniors are leaving, people are transferring out, you're bringing in new transfers. There's all these freshmen. Guys are back from injury. As the season progresses, guys get hurt. Unfortunately, we obviously all wish that wasn't the case, but it is unfortunately the case. And so I think, at least when I was in high school, unfortunately, that was the highest level ball I played. It was, hey, this is the team. This is, last year was last year. Next year is next year. This is what we do now. This is what we can control. This is how we attack every game this year with this team. And so I've never really been about this whole gaining momentum from a bowl game win because it's 6, 7, 8 months ago. It's a whole different team now. Guy transfers in. Take Chase Sowell, for example, comes in from East Carolina. Why does he care whether or not Iowa State won the Pop-Tart Bowl? I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying that's a question that I ask myself. Why is this something we're talking about? This doesn't feel like momentum for the entire team. And yes, some of the guys, you get winning mentality is a real thing. But that's the stance I've always taken. And this one, I am flipping. This was a huge momentum win for Iowa State. Not for the team next year, per se. Not necessarily for the guys on the team. And it maybe that it is for some of them. But for me, this is a momentum win for Iowa State football. This is a momentum win for the Cyclones that play in Jack Trice week in and week out and practice every day and get better and are their best version of themselves every single day. That is what this is, okay? Because not only did we get to 10 wins this year, right? This monumental task. You end up losing in the Big 12 championship game. Your hearts are crushed. And to be completely honest, Arizona State kind of embarrassed the Cyclones out there in AT&T Stadium. It was rough. It was. And things, obviously you get the Pop-Tart Bowl, you get all the hype around it, and everyone's excited. But there's still that element of you drop the Big 12 championship game. Where do you go from here? Yeah, you got the 10-win season. But what does that mean if you can't win the Big 12 championship? And that's how I think a lot of outsiders are looking at it, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that myself because I obviously know that this is a big one. This is a big deal to get to 10 wins. Finally knock that off. We're no longer under that title. But then you come out and you've had all this time off. You've had a month off or so, and you can come out flat and you can maybe lose sight of what the ultimate goal is here. But this Cyclones team had the mentality. We talked about it in their December 17th presser. How did the guys answer the questions? I thought it was a very much team mentality. We're doing this for each other. We want to prove that we can get this 11 win. And obviously, I was saying against an ACC opponent, against a Miami that started 9-0. This is a Big 12 ACC showdown. What does this mean for the college football playoffs moving forward? What does this mean for those automatic bids? And just the strength of the Big 12 as a whole, because people are going to look at this. If Miami runs up the score and wins 62-3, then people will say, okay, well, yeah, Miami did drop 2 games at the end of the year, 2 of their last 3, but obviously the ACC is stronger than the Big 12 in a game that showed, because Iowa State was the Big 12 runner-up and they get boat raced by Miami. No, that did not happen. Iowa State took advantage of that month off, got healthy, got rest, prepared, came out firing, scored 21 points in the first quarter. I have seen a lot of Iowa State games in which we did not score 21 points at all. So I was through the roof and just finish strong. Get that last second, not tush push, but QB sneak in there and walk away with a win. And does that affect next year's record? No. Does that affect our standings now? I guess, but what are the standings worth? This season is over. Does this get us in the college football playoff? No, there is not really any tangible benefit to winning the Pop-Tart Bowl. No actual, other than a sick toaster trophy. I mean, that thing is awesome. And if you watched the game on ESPN, you saw that it shoots the Pop-Tarts out. It was in the press box early. I think it was like right before the game started. They threw some in, cut to a promo for Cam Ward or Miami offense or whatever it was, come back and the Pop-Tarts are coming out of the toaster like into the air. So sick trophy. But other than that, what are we really pulling from this game? And I think it's the culture. I think it's the mindset now that Iowa State can be a very, very solid football team. This is no longer 2-12 or whatever, 2-win seasons, 6-win seasons, maybe. We got a flash here, flash there. Then we fall back down to the pits of Iowa State football. This is if you want to play D1 football, but you don't want to compete for championships, you come to Iowa State, you're going to have a good time, which obviously that's true. This doesn't change that. But I think the narrative around that has changed. Iowa State is now a real contender in the Big 12 moving forward. This is going to turn a lot of heads in the transfer portal in years moving forward. Obviously, how does Iowa State respond next year? That'll be one of the biggest questions. But in general, I think that this elevated the public's view of how Iowa State plays football. I think that this is no longer the team that gets steamrolled in the Big 12 every year. The team that it gets laughed at. And when you see Iowa State on the schedule, you just say, okay, that's a W. We don't have to really worry about that one. You move on to the next one. Now it's Iowa State's on our schedule. Oh, geez. I mean, I know every Iowa fan's thinking that. That's for sure. We're probably going to hold on to that Cyhawk trophy for the next 25 years, so be ready for that. But I will say, like, in general, I think everyone in the nation, non-conference play those first few games, then obviously Iowa State's going to be in the college football playoff, and they'll be having these conversations there. Then across the Big 12, Kansas State, Farmageddon, that's not an easy game. Not that rivalry games ever are. You know where I stand on those. But like a TCU, a Utah, a BYU, these teams that are very, well, TCU not so much now, but are very solid teams, are no longer looking at Iowa State and thinking, okay, well, we got one there. I'm not too worried about this game. Let's maybe focus on this part of the schedule. This is where we're going to really hone in and try to bring our best game. I'm not saying teams do that, but there is definitely an element, especially among the fans, of, okay, we don't have to worry about the Iowa State game. That's not true anymore. And that's why I think this game in particular, to get the Iowa State Cyclones to 11 wins, in all the glory that is the Pop-Tart Bowl. And that's a wild statement to make. But the Pop-Tart Bowl has become this spectacle, and they do it so well. And to do it in that environment, in front of an ACC frontrunner for most of the year in Miami, the number one offense and the number one in points scored and total offense, to do it in the fashion they did, especially, I think that this catapulted Iowa State into relevance. And how do they respond from there? I don't know. Unfortunately, I can only tell you that in a year from now. What happens next year? Okay, I can't tell you that right now. And that will, I think, probably even have a bigger effect on the view that Iowa State gets from the public. Inside of Ames, everybody knows this is the best team in the nation, period. Everybody knows that. Culture-wise, tap water involved, this is the best team. But everyone else, this absolutely turned heads. And that's why I think this was a momentum winner for Iowa State. Absolutely. This team is better with this win. That being said, this show is better if you subscribe. So be sure to do that before we move on to next episode. Hey, see this little blank area of the wall right here? We've got big things coming for that. I've seen some people in the comments requesting stuff for the set. That little blank spot, maybe we move the flag over a little bit. You're not going to want to miss that. You're going to have to come back tomorrow for that one, though. So that being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.